Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another segment of the Amplified Leadership Summit. This segment highlights the lived experience of a remarkable leader whose leadership journey, transcending law, banking, and ministry, has become a national phenomenon. Now, our guest really needs no introduction, but for the benefit of anyone who sits in the room who may not be familiar with him, this is for you. Pastor Irukwu is a law graduate of the University of Warwick, UK, a former investment banker and partner in a law firm. He is now the senior pastor of Jesus House for All Nations, London. He is the founder of the Mandates Men's Ministry, a ministry which seeks to empower, equip, encourage, and raise godly men. He is also a key member of the One People Commission of the Evangelical Alliance, a body set up to integrate ethnic minority churches more fully into Evangelical Alliance. He was one of the presidents of Churches Together in England, representing the Pentecostal churches in England. He served with 5 other presidents, including Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, and Cardinal Nichols, the Cardinal of the Roman Catholic Church. He was voted Britain's most inspirational black person in the poll conducted by the Mayor of London's office and the London Metro in 2012. He co-founded a children's charity with his wife, Shola, called Bright Futures for African Children, a charity which seeks to break the cycle of poverty by providing educational facilities and resources to children in poverty-stricken countries in Africa. Pastors Agu and Shola have 3 children, and they live in the United Kingdom. Now, this is Pastor Agu's formal introduction, but let me tell you my reality of Pastor Agu. PAI is a leader whose legacy is being written in real time. He is a driving force, a titan in governance, leadership, and ministry, a man whose influence echoes across nations. He is a spiritual statesman, a visionary, and the grandmaster, who has just recently stepped into the role of grandpa. And very recently he said, "Do not call me Pop." So I'm hoping now PAI will permit me to call him Pop since he has just stepped into the grandpa role. So ALS 2025, without much ado, give it up for our guest, our very special guest, Pastor Agu Irukwu.
Thank you. Thank you. Those introductions were weighty. I think the one that caught my attention was national phenomenon. I thought, who's that? But
I think we would have said global phenomenon.
No. And the second thing I want to say is that as I was listening to you, I thought you really should do a chat show. You're good.
Oh, thank you, PAI. Did you guys hear that?
I was almost carried away by that introduction, but wow. My feet are firmly on the ground.
Thank you so much, sir. It's such a delight to have you at the Amplified Leadership Summit. You know, as someone who has successfully led at multiple levels, we are excited to hear your insights on what it takes to lead at the next level. So we are just going to be diving right in. So PAI, what does next level leadership look like to you? What's your overview on next level leadership?
Next level leadership, personally or generally?
Generally, because this conversation is cutting across all industries. So be it ministry, medicine, professionals, entrepreneurs, and so.
Okay, well, I think one thing we'll all agree is that there's a dearth, a scarcity of good leadership across the board. And we see the signs there. It doesn't matter what industry, in the church, in ministry, but in politics, of course, in finance, the list is endless. So this is a time when the world desperately needs good leaders, even leadership in the home, because, you know, leadership is not just industry leadership,
Exactly.
Leadership. If we look at the way, I mean, out of all the definitions I've heard in my life of leadership, the one that stuck with me and it stuck with me because of the simplicity, was John Maxwell's definition, where he says leadership is influence. And so if we look at that influence, then we know that leadership is really across the board, in the home, you know, in schools, in the corporate world, in ministry, in industry, in education. And in all those areas, there is a gap because there are not enough good leaders. So I think, firstly, must commend you on your conference because it's doing what we hope many more will do, is stirring up this passion for leadership.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, so we're all scrambling to equip ourselves to become better leaders, to move to the next level in terms of leadership.
Next level leaders are leaders who aspire to get better at every phase of their lives. Now, speaking to you, delegates, you've got your notepads, you've got your pens. Get writing, because PAI is going to be sharing with us what I call invaluable lived experiences. So get writing. So going straight to the next question, PAI. This talks about, your climb to leadership. And this is like a 3-in-1 question because it interlinks. But so now, there's no doubt that you're a leader amongst leaders. Your journey over the years speaks for itself. There are evidences and fruits all around. But looking back, are there specific principles or guidelines that helped you rise in leadership? What did that climb look like? And what kept you grounded as you ascended?
Okay, that's a very, very, very wide
question.
Very wide question. But let's try and answer them. It might not be so organized, but I'm sure you get something from it. I mean, I think the first thing that I always say is it's important to appreciate that whatever we have become, however we're having an impact, whatever influence we have, is primarily by the grace of God. Nobody is, it's not by power, it's not by might, it's by His Spirit. So it's just the grace of God. And I always want that to be out there, that I'm not in any way saying I have worked hard for it, so I deserve it. I'm intelligent enough for it, so I deserve it. I have the strength for it, so I deserve it. I don't believe in that deserving anything. I just believe that, whatever anybody has achieved, it's just a manifestation of God's grace. So we say that first. Now, of course, you can work against grace. You can work with grace. And I think that's where your question comes in. How have we cooperated with the grace that God has given? And I think there are certain things. I think, the list is quite, it's a long list, but let's just pick a few things along the way. I think the number one thing would be a heart for others. There can be various examples of leadership, but I think that the best example of leadership is the leadership of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, not in a religious way. I think the Gospels are a fantastic book on leadership because you see leadership secrets exposed there. So what's the first thing? The first leadership secret that's obvious there is that Jesus was about other people. Yeah, his focus was to make other people better. He came to serve other people. And that's unfortunately not something you see as much as you should. People want to use other people to achieve their own objectives. And they don't realize that it's in serving other people that you fulfill your own purpose. So I think that's the first thing, that leadership is outward focused. It's about serving other people. It's about making other people better. I think a second thing would be that you can't go too far without a vision. You've just got to have a picture of where you're going. In Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom, and it's a book I would highly recommend. It's one of those books that totally inspires you. He was part of his punishment for being a leader of the anti-apartheid movement. And the ANC he was incarcerated for, I think, 26 years or something, 13 of them in solitary confinement. And if you imagine that 13 years in solitary confinement, that should make anybody lose their mind. So when asked, and Shola and I have been there, so we've seen his cell, we've seen how barren Robin Island is. There's nothing on it, just rocks. And when asked, what kept him sane in those 13 years, he says that it was the vision of a free South Africa. So he had a picture in his mind that one day South Africa is going to be free. And that picture kept him sane for 26 odd years locked up, 13 of them in solitary confinement. So I think we underestimate the power of a vision. In Genesis, the 15th chapter, when Abraham goes to God and says, I don't have a son, you blessed me, but who's going to inherit this? It's going to be my servant, Eliezer. And then God gives him a word. And, we always look for a word in church, and that's good. We must have a word from God. But you see, that word must become a picture. It must be something imprinted on your mind. So God says to him, no, you won't. A son born from you will inherit, will be born to you and will inherit what I have blessed you with. Paraphrase it. And then he takes him outside, and that's the part that excites me. Yeah. And he says to him, look up to the sky. And he looks up to the sky. It must have been one of those nights when the sky just looks as beautiful. It's like God's handwriting is in the sky. And he says to him, as many as these stars are, so will your offspring be. And, for the next 25 years, nothing happening year after year, month after month, nothing happening. I think what would have kept him, the word of God, yes, but in addition, and this is how God does exceedingly abundantly, the picture of that night. He would have remembered that God took me out. God showed me that sky. God said to me, my children are going to be. So even though Sarah, her womb is dead, nothing is happening, one day is going to happen. So I think for us as leaders, we should get a word from God and pray that God converts that word into a picture that He brands our hearts with, and that's what keeps us going.
Wow. Thank you so much, P.I. I really love this, and I really hope that the delegates are taking notes, because this principles cuts across every industry. It does not matter who you are and where you are leading, because a future you haven't pictured, you will not ever be able to feature in. So I think I have really grabbed onto that. Thank you so much, P.I. So, going forward, let's talk about navigating leadership transitions. Your leadership journey hasn't stayed on one level. It has clearly evolved. That's very obvious. So could you walk us through how your leadership has transitioned from one phase to another? We may have people in the room who feel stuck in their current season. So what practical steps can they take to break through to the next level? Because it's all about next level right now.
Okay, I think that a leader who's going to keep moving must have a certain restlessness in their spirit. Yeah. Because if you don't have a certain restlessness in your spirit, you will, rather than step out of the boat, you will stay in the safety of the boat. And that's all that will come your way, because you haven't stepped out of the boat. So I think as a person, there's a general restlessness that I have in me. The joke, especially with my sister, who's a general manager of the church we're on, when I come back from a trip, she says, "Oh, Ago, what are you going to upset now?" Because she knows I'm coming back and I'm going to upset something. I'm going to say, no, this, can't we do this better? Can't we do that better? Can't we do this better? Have you seen what so-and-so is doing? They've set a standard. Can't we get to that standard? I think there must be a certain restlessness that makes you want to keep moving until God says it's time to come home. I think also there must be an element of courage, because pioneering or stepping into the new is really is a step into the unknown.
Exactly.
I mean, you have a word from God.
Yeah.
You have a confirmation in your spirit, but in real terms is the unknown. So there has to be an element of courage. You also need courage because people who mean well will try to hold you back. They are naysayers who we can pack to one side because that's who they are, naysayers. But there are a lot of people who are well-intentioned. They mean well for you. I mean, you can imagine Peter wanted to step out of the boat. I'm sure all the other disciples would be like, Peter, come on. There's a storm.
Yeah.
You know, we want to be together to the end. You're going to drown. Why would you do that? And they meant well because they didn't want their body to die.
Yeah.
So I think if you're going to move to the next level, you must expect that. Some people in your family would say, why do you want to take that risk? You know, things are working. Don't change a winning team. You know, there's a lot of phrases we have that basically are containment phrases, just nice ways to keep us contained. If you're in the church, you know, don't take these things so seriously. You know, don't. I mean, come on. You can't listen to what Pastor Jones said. That was Pastor Jones' own experience. You know, it doesn't have to be your experience. You know, there'll be all those things. So you've got to be ready, you know, to go past that. You've got to. If you don't, I always say to people that you will eventually. But what will happen is that your misery factor will overcome your fear factor. So when you get so miserable, you will overcome the fear.
Oh, wow.
And you will jump out of the boat. There's no need to get so miserable. If God has said it, then just let's do it. And then also to appreciate that there are necessary endings to everything in life. We are afraid of necessary endings. You know, we want good things not to end forever. But it's just unnatural. You know, everything comes to an end. Our Savior came, and it was great ministry time, 3 years and a bit after he went. And it was interesting that he told his disciples from the start that it's in your interest that I go.
Exactly.
And I think it's always in the interests of those we serve that we go. And going doesn't necessarily mean stepping out of the picture. And sometimes going does not mean changing your title, but your function must change. So, yeah. I could say a lot more about the things that are needed.
Please, you can go on and on.
I think those things are. I mean, there are other things that, I pray that everybody gets a great support system. One of the things I've had in my life is a fantastic support system, and so I've never gone on a journey on my own. We're
going to be coming back to that.
There's always been people who would speak, pray, walk with me, starting with my wife. My wife is my most significant partner apart from the Holy Spirit. And then there are others. I'm submitted to people who pastor me. I believe safety in life is to have a circle of submission. Yeah. I think that's part of the safety in our journey. So I've got people, who are above me, who I'm submitted to. I've got peers who I'm submitted to, and then I've got people who I mentor or who in a hierarchical structure, I have oversight over them, but they also know I'm submitted to them. Submission is not a negative word; it's a very positive word. So that creates some safety because people are speaking into your life and people are praying with you. So I think a support system helps as you make those transitions. And then lastly, I just say to people, you just do it. What's the worst that can happen?
Exactly. Just do it.
And frankly, when you think about it, what's the worst that can happen? I made a mistake, then I reverse. The world hasn't ended. But I don't want to not tried it. If I feel it's God, then I'm going to give it a chance. And sometimes it's not easy. You're giving up, big stuff, major stuff. You're stepping out of your comfort zone. It seems like you're throwing everything away. But if it's God, he always has a way of confirming that it is him.
Wow. Oh, wow. You safely landed on the next question. And this is why we have the summit every year. So this is the fourth edition. And we're hoping that this inspires change and transformation. What PAI is sharing with us today are life-changing nuggets. So I really hope somebody leaves here inspired, provoked to go just do it. Do that thing that God has laid in your heart. Apply for that job. Write that book. Just do it. So thank you so much, PI, for sharing those with us. So this takes us straight, like I said, it just went straight to the next question, talking about the power of strategic relationships. You know, from observation, it's clear you've mastered the art of strategic relationships, something that has undoubtedly, played a role in your access to influential platforms. Now, for many of us in the West, this is an area we struggle with. Could you shed light on how to intentionally build these strategic relationships that could open doors and create, meaningful access and platforms?
Okay, I think maybe if we back up and understand, I think why people might not open up to building relationships might be because people don't understand how absolutely foundational relationships are. So let me back up and try and lay that foundation. It's absolutely foundational. So, I mean, you know the story, you're the pastor. So they get a lawyer to try to trip Jesus up. So they say to him, what's the greatest commandment? Now, of course, it's a trick question because there are 635 odd commandments. And each one, the way the commandments then worked in the Jewish culture, each one was as important as the other. So you couldn't say this was more important. If you said that, then you had kind of desecrated the law of Moses. Yeah. So it was a trick question. So which is the most important commandment? There was no answer to that question in a natural sense. Yeah. But of course, we're not Jesus. And, he answered it in a way that we look back now and we say, wow, how did he get that answer? Because if I was asked that question, I won't answer it because I know it's a
diplomatic.
Trick. Yeah, it's a trick question. But then he answers it and he says, well, the greatest commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your strength, all your might, everything that you have. And then he says, he doesn't end it there. He says the second is like onto the first. So he says, I haven't finished. There's a second one that's tied to the first. Love your neighbor as yourself. Now, what he does is that he shrinks 635 instructions into one thing that has two expressions. And what is the one thing? He says, these 635 laws are based on relationships. And there are two expressions of that relationship. Your relationship with God, get it right. Do what you need to do. All these spiritual disciplines, worship, prayer, pursue intimacy, get as close to God, become a friend of God, And then he says, once you get that right, then get the others right as well in terms of your relationships with your neighbor, and then we could go into the legal thing about neighbor, but all the lawyers will know that Donahue and Stevenson, a case in law, Lord Atkin defines neighbor, and he draws the definition of neighbor from the Good Samaritan story. So incidentally, the entire common law was based on the Bible. Now they want us to forget that in 2025, but the entire common law was based on the Bible. So
everybody's learning something.
So Lord Atkin draws his definition of neighbor from the Good Samaritan, and basically it's anybody that they call him the man on the Clapham omnibus. Anybody who a reasonable man, the man on the Clapham omnibus, would agree that your actions or your lack of actions would affect negatively. Yeah. So who is my neighbor? It's anybody that God brings my way. Yeah. Of course, you start with the closest and you keep going on and on and on. So in terms of strategic relationships, God will bring people your way. He will direct people to your path. Now it's up to you to serve those relationships. And the key with relationships, as opposed to networking, I mean, people use the term networking. It's okay. But I always say, I'm not so sure about that term because networking is kind of for me. I'm looking for who can help me get to the next stage. Is this guy the guy I should see? That guy is CEO of this guy is that. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
As long as when I meet you, it's not all about me. You know, I'm thinking, how can I help you as well? Now, for us to do that, you have to feel that there's something you have to offer. And everybody has something to offer. It's just that some people haven't discovered what they have to offer. But everybody has something to offer. And when you are in that position and you have something to offer, you know, I mean, Revi wrote the book. He's the expert on strategic relationships. So, and incidentally, that's an example of how this thing works.
Exactly.
Because, you know, Revi and I have a rich relationship.
Yeah.
You know, you're in Revi's inner circle, and he says to me, "Listen, I want you to pour into my guys," and that's how I now built a relationship with you and others.
Yeah.
So that's how it worked.
Yeah.
Now, if you had not served Revi, and if he was not serving you, we wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
Because both of you were serving each other in bringing what you had to the table.
Yeah.
And your focus wasn't, John, I've got to, you know, some people, even when they're coming, you're already irritated because they want to use you, they want to climb on you, they want to, and they're going to discard you. But some people come and yes, they want to progress, but they're also thinking, how can I help? This is what I have.
Yeah.
And everybody has something. You know, you might just have time. You know, give some of your time.
Yeah.
You know, you might be an intercessor. Take some prayer points off somebody. You know, if somebody says to me, do you have any prayer points? We pray once a week and I just want to pray for you. That guy is going to leapfrog a lot of people straight away into my life. And there are going to be people who are on the queue and I'm thinking, well, you're on the queue to take from me. This guy wants to do something for me. And that's how it works. You know, we all have something that we can bring to the table.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we start the process of those strategic relationships. But I as a rule, I've never hunted for people. You know, as a rule, I don't hunt for relationships. I just know God will bring them my way.
Yeah.
And when they come, I'm ready to serve them. Yeah, I want to give them the best, get the best out of them. And then they now, you know, in return. I mentor different groups of people. I mentor you guys. I mentor a group of very, very extremely mega successful businessmen. Mega. I mean, at the top of the game.
I love the emphasis on that.
Yeah, no, and they're at the top of their game. I mean, they are mega, and I mean mega. And, you know, one of the things, I want to say this because it's important. One of the things that, because, you know, when I'm talking to my wife, why do all these guys, you know? I mean, I don't have anything to offer them. I have nothing to offer them. I mean, these guys, they're at another level. I have nothing to offer. I mean, I can't even remotely. So my wife said to me, she said a couple of things. She said to me, and I think this is important because, you know, if you're married, your spouse knows you more than you.
Yeah.
She said, number one, she said, those guys are used to being hustled. You never hustle them. Yeah, you've never hustled them. I don't ask for anything. You know, I'm just there to serve in whatever way. And usually the service is, you know, some wisdom, some advice. It's usually not technical because they're all in technical areas. And prayer. Yeah. So that's what I'm serving them. So she said, you never hustle them. She said, the second thing is that you keep their confidence. They don't tell you something and hear it elsewhere. Never happened. So they feel that they can be safe with you. They can share deep things with you and they've never heard it elsewhere. I mean, there are people who are close to me and they don't even know who these people are because I don't talk about them in terms of their names. And that's how you build strategic relationships. People must trust you.
Yes.
People must feel that I can put this in your hand and I'm not going to hear it all over the place. I'm not going to hear, you know, that this person did, this person has, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I think those things just just help in strategic relations. But read Revi's book because he's the expert. He's the expert.
We've just advertised Revi's book. Wow, thank you so much, PI. Wow, these are gems. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is a time well spent, honestly. But every question, whilst you're speaking, is just birthing another question. But I'm just looking at them. Like, do you know what? Let's stick to the time we have. This is awesome. Thank you so much. Now, moving on. Influence beyond titles. You once held prominent positions, including serving as chair in RCCG and, many significant roles. These are both enviable and admirable roles. And in spite of how great these roles and positions were, you made a bold decision to step down. Okay, now that's okay, he stepped down. But what's remarkable is, even after stepping down, your influence hasn't diminished in any way. Rather, it's grown more than how it was before, you stepped down. It's grown. So now for those listening, how can they learn to cultivate and maintain influence even when they no longer, hold titles and positions?
I think, you say it's grown. You must be watching from the outside. I don't know. I just kind of do.
Well, I think those from outside.
Okay, I just kind of.
You're blind spotted, so you might not know.
I think, and I actually think that blind spot is intentional, and I think it's good to have that because the worst mistake you want to make is to believe your own PR. So it's very good to have those blind spots. So I think that especially out of our culture. Our culture is fascinated with, consumed by titles and positions. And I think that's just so not the Bible. I think if Jesus is our model, if Jesus was a modern day leader, can you imagine how many titles would have followed him? It wouldn't be just Jesus Christ, the Messiah. He would have, he has different names that we call him, but he would have titles. Actually, sometimes I play games with myself and I put Jesus in the contemporary Pentecostal world. Firstly, he would have sold anointing oil because that's how he would have been a billionaire. He would have just done Jesus anointing oil, sold it. It's just, our leadership is just so different from his. Yeah. It's interesting that when they went to arrest him, nowadays, if you walk into a setting, most settings, not just the church, you kind of know who the leader is. He looks the best. His face is, everybody looks rugged. He's just nice. Her clothes are the best, and there's a whole battery of followers around them. You know who the leader is. But it's interesting that when they went to get Jesus, they were confused. Because they couldn't tell who's the leader. So they had to say to Judas, you've got to point him out to us. So Judas said, I'll kiss him. When I kiss him, then who that's the one. Is. That's who the leader is. That's such a powerful picture.
It is.
And a powerful indictment of how far we have gone wrong, where we want to be on top and suppress people, rather than bring people up to our level, so that after a while, we're just, you can't even tell who's who in that place. I think, there's a fascination and an obsession with titles and positions, a very unhealthy one in my regard. I think that if you allow a man to make you, a man will unmake you. I think that's guaranteed. So, people are pursuing men so that men can anoint them into titles or positions. I've seen it happen all the time. And that same man or another man who's going to take his own place because he thinks his place is permanent, but his place is not permanent. Another man who's going to take, a man or woman, as the case may be, is going to unmake you. So I think I've learned a long time ago that, just find out what God would have you do. Pray for the grace to do it. Do it with all your heart. And what happens all the time, because men don't like to be wrong-footed, men and women, organizations. So when you're doing what God has asked you to do, they chase you with titles. They say, now this thing you're doing, because everybody wants to kind of contain it and put a stamp on it and everything. Everybody wants to affiliated with success. So they say, this thing you're doing, now you are now the overseeing deaconess in charge of intercontinental whatever, because they just have to put a name on it because it is so successful in what you're doing. You don't have to chase the titles. They will chase you with the titles. And in any case, even if they don't chase you with the titles, your primary audience is in heaven. That's what matters, that you're making them happy, you're pleasing them, you're fulfilling their agenda. And then they do the rest. So I've never really had time for titles. I actually found out how many titles I had towards the end. I thought, wow, it's a lot of positions that they've given one person, because I've never really had time for titles. It just it can become a noose around your neck. But in our culture, those things are very, very important.
So important.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I remember when I stepped down, and that was because God said I should do it. And one of the more senior pastors in our organization said, "So when you come to meetings, where are we going to sit you now?" And I looked and I said, "Well, that's your problem, not mine. If I show up, well, that's your problem, not mine." And what the person was saying in effect was, we sit according to the
title.
So now you have no title. You are just
a senior pastor,
a parish pastor. You're just pastor of one parish. Now, so before you used to oversee 700 or 800 of these parishes, but now you're just a pastor of one parish. So you've given us a problem. What do we do with you? And I actually enjoy the problem. If I must confess, if I must be honest, in a mischievous way, I enjoy the problem because it gives everybody a headache. What do we do with him? But yeah, I guess they should. The idea is, don't let the titles drive us. Don't let take them when you're giving, but get on with what you have to do.
Wow. As funny as PAI's response is, this is just absolutely gem, absolute gem. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. We're going to be wrapping up, but I'll wrap up with this question. We know that with each leadership role comes along with its own set of challenges.
Yeah.
So how have you over the years navigated these challenges and adapted to these various new roles?
I think I should say that just God has just helped. That's the first thing, big time. God has helped. Second thing to say is that it hasn't always been successful. I'm not going to sit here and make you think, it's just been successful everywhere. Made some mistakes, dropped some balls, have some regrets. If we could wind back the clock, I would do that better. But I feel also that those things are part of the journey. You learn from those mistakes. You learn from those circumstances. I think it's important to say that, because you don't want to give the impression that there is one formula that makes sure that you will not have any hiccups or any things that you're involved in or you do that you regret. And that's not true. We all go through that. Having said that, I think a number of things have helped in those difficult times. I think having a very sincere relationship with God, and not a religious relationship, but a genuine, sincere relationship with God, where you can be naked before God. You can just admit that you blew it before God, or that or that you're afraid before God, or that you don't know what to do, or that you're overwhelmed before God. When we read the Psalms, not as a religious book, you'll be amazed as to, how many times the psalmist was venting before he now ended up all the time with, well, okay, God, I know you will. But there's a whole period where the psalmist is just venting, or is just, pouring out his heart, or is overwhelmed, or is tired, or has made a wrong decision. It's such a real life book, the Psalms. And I think that's how we are. Yeah. So I think we must strive for that sincere relationship. I mean, if we are faking everybody and we are, to use the Nigerian colloquial term, we are forming for everybody. I mean, you can't do that for God. That's madness. He knows everything. So just be naked before him. And I think that helps. I think having, the Bible says in the multitude of counselors, there's safety. I think having good counselors around that will, iron sharpens iron, that will be there for you to say, look, what do you think I can do with this? What do you think I can do with this? And I'm blessed with that. I have people who I'm submitted to. I have people who are my peers, my friends, who I can bounce things off. And if I count the amount of times that I've got wisdom from somebody who's in my close circle that has saved me from a complete disaster, or that has come in the midst of a challenge and has been like cold water on a hot, dry day, into my soul, it'd be unbelievable. So I think multitude of counselors, good counselors, has helped. And then I think sometimes, also knowing that some of these things are electives that God has chosen in the university of life. And you just have to take the stripes, learn the lesson, because they've elected you to take that course and get on with life. Yeah.
And make sure you pass the course.
Yes, because if not, you resit it. So just pass it once and go. So I think, those things have helped with challenges. I think, of course, from a spiritual side, I understand prayer. I was going to say I pray, but let me just rephrase that. I understand prayer, and prayer has been a safe place for me in times of challenges. All through my journey, and literally all through my journey, I run into the place of prayer. I'm just there before God. In fact, a joke with my team, my immediate team. They're headed by a lady called Abby, who's been with me for donkey years. She's like a daughter. And so when we're faced with challenges, she says to me, "You're going to pray," because she knows that that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and pray, and I'll pray. The joke is that there are a couple of things I do when I'm faced with monumental challenges. I pray, and then if I'm not fasting, I eat a good meal. Somehow after a good meal, the world always looks a different place to me. I mean, it might not to anybody.
Comfort meal.
One day we have another chat. I'll tell you about the spirituality of food.
Oh, wow. I can't wait to hear that.
From the Bible. But I eat a good meal and then I sleep. And when I wake up, I've prayed, I've eaten, I've slept. I think, okay, bring it on. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's face it.
Let's tackle this head on.
So I think those things have helped me in these challenges, especially good relationships. People who can, there's nothing like having good. You have been blessed with some fantastic relationships. People who've been in the valley with me and they've been on the hill with me. Yeah. People who know me, know my heart. People who I'm not afraid to expose parts of me that most of the world will not see. But I can expose it to them and they will protect it. They won't take advantage. They won't weaponize it at some point. And I'm blessed with such people. That's the truth. I always say that I'm a very, very wealthy man. I'm actually in terms of relationships, I think I am way above billionaire level in terms of relationships because I have some of the most amazing relationships imaginable. And they've been there for me through thick and thin. And those things have helped.
Wow. Thank you so much, PAI. I don't want to keep reiterating what PAI has said because why should I say after what? No, so I'm not going to be reiterating anything. But now we've had the serious bits. He's told us the serious bits, how he got here, how he navigates challenges, strategic relationships. And must I say, it would be remiss of me not to give a shout out to my mentor, Revi, Don Revi, because that's what strategic relationship is all about. That's why I'm here. So he made this happen. So thank you, boss. Now, we've had all the serious bits. PI, behind the scene, we know you're this, spiritual statesman, a driving force, a titan, all of that. How do you chill? We know you like food, so let's not talk about food because we see all the pictures on social media, you and Revi hanging out at different, hangouts.
No, he is bad for me. My wife actually thinks he's bad for me because whenever I'm with him, we do. I must tell you this is crazy. We're driving back from a ministry. We ministered somewhere, and I think I ministered. He went with me. We're driving back. It's in the evening. We're hungry. You would assume we'd find a nice restaurant. Guess what? That's why he's bad for me. We stopped at a petrol station and bought those jam donuts with sugar all over them and ate it. As we were eating it, we knew that this is madness. I mean, the sugar, the dough.
Guilty pleasure.
But in any case, we ate it, and so when I got home, I confessed to my wife that man has led me astray again. One more time. No, but what do I do to chill? A couple of things. I mean, my relationship with my wife is a great one. My wife, Shola, is my best friend. So we hang out a lot. We laugh a lot. I'm sure you've heard me say it, that Shola and I laugh a lot. We laugh at everything. We laugh at ourselves. We laugh with God. We laugh at the enemy. And we laugh at a lot of people. The world is a comical place if you look at it, from that dimension. So yeah, my wife, the kids, even though, two of them are growing and one is married, and that's how I ended up grandpa. And another is on her way to being married. And then we'll have Sochi, who's in boarding school. So it means that Shola and I spend a lot of time together. So I do that. Then I have friends that I hang out with. It might not be as frequent as we want, but it's frequent enough.
Yeah.
Where we just hang out and we're just boys. We just do what boys do. Even though we are older men, we are just boys. Boys are boys. We just kind of gist and jive and, tease each other. And oftentimes it happens around a meal. So yeah, I do that. I swim a lot. It's my favorite sport. And my wife says I swim pretty seriously, but I just find I enjoy it. She says I come alive in the water. I really enjoy it. I swim. Yeah, that's it. I do a lot of eating out on my own, a lot, which people might find strange, but it's very therapeutic for me. I just find a corner in one of my favorite restaurants and I just sit there with myself, eat a good meal, chat with the waiters. In some of these places, I've known them for 30, 40 years.
Oh, wow.
They're like family, some of these restaurants. Yeah, and that's basically how I chill. Increasingly, I listen to a lot of audiobooks because if you're not reading, you're not taking information in, then you're retrogressing. So I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I travel a lot now. When I was very involved in the larger body, redeemed body, I thought I traveled a lot, and that just went through the roof. So now I travel a lot. I'm on planes and off planes. So what I've taken to doing is listening to audiobooks. And I'd like to encourage, those who are Amplified Leadership Summit ALS, you have to read. If you are not reading, you are dying. So you've just got to read. So because I couldn't keep up at the pace I thought with reading the books, Shola and I stumbled on Audible, the audiobooks. And so we just listen to a lot of audiobooks. Sometimes we listen to the same book together so we can talk about it. Yeah, that's my relaxation. I cook. Yeah, I cook.
Which seen that on social media.
Which is very therapeutic for me. Very, very therapeutic. I enjoy that space where I'm creating in the kitchen. And that's my downtime.
Thank you so much. And now, delegates, the reason why I ask PAI that is because we take life too seriously. So if PAI has time to chill, who are you not to find time to chill?
I think you should say, if God had time to chill. I mean, the creator of the ends of the earth, God himself, I don't think he put it in there just because he had space to write a few sentences. I think the Sabbath was God saying to us, from his perspective, saying to us, if I rested, you better rest.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's so much abuse of our bodies, and we wear a badge on our sleeves saying, "Oh, I don't sleep at night. I had vigils."
Exactly.
Well, if you have vigils every day,
From 12 to 6
you will
a.m.
probably die sooner than you should, despite all the vigils, because the body is wired to get between 7 to 9 hours of sleep for the body to do what it needs to do. If you're not exercising, there's a likelihood that you will end up at the gate sooner than you plan, because you're simply not exercising. If you're not drinking enough water, you create complications. They're just simple things that you can do. And when I say exercising, you don't have to go to the gym or swim 65 laps or whatever it is. Just free. You paid your taxes. Walk on the pavement. 30 minutes every day. Frankly, 30 minutes 3 or 4 times a week, done. That you've done, you've met the minimum standard. So there's just, and I think it's important to talk to pastors especially, but then also senior execs about this. We've just got to learn to take care of our bodies, and it's spiritual. This is the temple. It was bought at a price, and there's a responsibility to take care of the temple.
The Grandmaster has spoken. I've
got
nothing to add to it. You've heard it. Rest. Chill. Take a chill pill. Whew. It's been an awesome, awesome time with you, PAI. Thank you so much for pouring yourself into us. Thank you for your wisdom. We celebrate you. We celebrate your legacy. We look forward to having you again at the Amplified Leadership Summit. By God's grace. Thank you so much. And it's goodbye from us here at the studio, the Amplified Leadership Summit studio. Yeah, I'm calling that in, speaking into the future. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, guys. This is just one session of the many sessions that will happen. So, of course, it's just one part of it. Take advantage of everything. There was Kairos moments. So this is probably a Kairos moment. So take advantage of it. Build relationships. Live there determined to do something and start to do what you're determined to do. Is your habits that will determine eventually who you are.